I think all of us need to spend a little bit of time talking about Vivian. She seems to be taking Zenless Zone Zero fans by storm, and she's one of those characters, being one of the newly dropped characters, that it seems like the consensus is you either really, really like her or you really don't like her. And that's for some very interesting reasons that we're going to dive into this video with. Yeah, so Vivian Banshee, she is a new ether anomaly. She is part of the group called Mockingbird. She's kind of Hugo's partner in crime. If you guys know Hugo, Hugo is kind of like the, I was about to say star-crossed lover of Lycon, but it's like an enemies to friendship type beat when it comes to Mockingbird and who and what their dynamic is. But Vivian is a very interesting case because unlike all the other characters where you can kind of fantasize about romancing them, Vivian actually wants to romanticize you, and in pretty interesting ways. Some of the ways that a lot of fans have said is problematic, and we really shouldn't forgive her just because she has a cute face. So, Vivian's whole story arc is, which is pretty much hinted in the story, spoilers for people who don't want to dive too much into it, but Vivian's whole perspective is way back then when she was going through a really tough time, probably with the Exaltists, who was her first family, her founded family. The Faithin had quote-unquote saved her, and since then, Faithin, or the idea of Faithin and who Faithin is, has been like her obsession. She makes her own merch on Faithin. I wouldn't be surprised if she writes fan fiction on her and Lord Faithin. But she is completely obsessed, to the point where it kind of reminds me of like those crazy K-pop fans. And it does become very apparent in the story that one of her biggest wishes is to actually marry her quote-unquote beloved Lord Faithin. And this, a lot of fans have had mixed feelings with. One of it being that Vivian admits to this, that she's pretty much been stalking Lord Faithin, or rather what she feels is the conceptualization of Lord Faithin since the beginning, since Faithin quote-unquote saved her. We don't know when this moment is exactly, they don't disclose it yet in the story, but she has had what a lot of people call an unhealthy obsession, and the narrative is, it's like, how is it stalking, number one, if you want her to stalk you, number one, and then number two, are we letting her get away with this behavior because she just looks cute or because she's a woman? And one of the main arguments that people have said in stuff like this is like, if Vivian were a guy, would we still have the same look? Like, would we still have the same perception of the character if Vivian were a guy? You know? So it's raised a lot of flags. It's raised a lot of flags. And something I do want to talk about is kind of like a rant that has happened within the community. This one is a rant by Aldrin, which I think kind of encompasses everything that the community has been talking about. And we're just kind of be going over what the general consensus is and how everyone's been feeling. Or half the community's been feeling. So, rant, Vivian is not a simp. So I've seen some people saying that they don't like Vivian because she simps for Faithin. Some even said that they were really into her whole mysterious and mythical vibe at first, but then completely changed their minds after seeing how she acts on Proxy. But I think it's kind of unfair because Vivian is not a simp, she's just an otaku. I think in the sense that they're saying is an otaku is that, and this isn't a real image by the way, this is art by somebody else, by Louise Hicks. Just to make clear, like, this is not an actual thing. But this does kind of seem like her behavior in it. By otaku usually talks about a shut-in, who are usually into anime and manga, and like really big fans of that. I don't exactly agree with this point so far, only because in an otaku sense, you are under the perception and you're under the mindset that these aren't real characters, like these aren't real people, you know? It's like loving a franchise, you know? But in this case, Vivian is well aware that there is a person behind the scenes here, and she is fantasizing and is obsessive over this person. Even to the point that her ultimate moves is notice me, Lord Faithin, or I won't let you hurt Lord Faithin, which I guess in some sense, if you were into her, is endearing. You know, it's like, oh yes, like this cute girl like wants to protect me. That's so sweet. You know, you'd probably get brownie points for that. But if it was someone that you weren't into, it might come off as unnerving. To continue on, they say, being super passionate about someone or something doesn't actually mean you're desperately in love, wanting attention and affection, or whatever we associate with simping. This, I also disagree, only because it is very heavily implied in the story that Vivian wants to marry Lord Phaethon. Whether you play as Belle or whether you play as Wise, this is something that Vivian expresses, and it is very heavily implied that she wants. Is that she wants to marry Lord Phaethon. And it's even hinted subliminally at the end of the conversation that she contemplates whether or not she would have Lord Phaethon sign a marriage document or a marriage proposal, even if the proxies were unconscious, that she would like forge it, which is also kind of like, that's kind of creepy, man. It's kind of creepy. To continue on, they say, we all have that one artist, musician, actor, or whatever that we admire, right? It's not that we want to date them, but we just really like what they do. We learn about their career, we dig through their personal life, we collect their merch, and so on. That's Vivian with Phaethon. She's not simping, she's just being a nerd. I see what they're saying. I'm not quite sure if I agree. And the whole sudden personality switch, it's not that she's down bad, it's just a classic gap moe. Okay, that's interesting. When we're talking about gap moe tends to, they explain it down here. If you think it's weird that maybe you're not familiar with the trope, gap moe is basically when a character has unexpected personality traits that make them more endearing. Like when a super cool and collected character suddenly acts awkward or dorky in certain situations. A great example of someone with gap moe is Caesar, which is someone that they mention here. Caesar is a great example of a character with gap moe. She comes up as a strong, super cool, like tomboyish character, but secretly she really likes feminine things, and she likes like shoujo manga and a lot of girly stuff, like secretly, you know. She doesn't really talk about it, but that's an example of gap moe, that they have unexpected qualities that kind of contradict their personality, which in turn can make them more endearing. Vivian is an example of gap moe. She does come off kind of cold and dark and mysterious at first, but then it's like, oh my god, she's like a super fan, which always throws me off in the storyline, so I can see that. Some people love that kind of contrast, some don't, but hey, it's a thing. To me personally, Vivian is an interesting character. She's cute and adorable. She went through a lot, and I even like her geeking out about Phaethon. And this is definitely not me simping for her, because I only simp for Ellen. So yeah, feel free to dislike Vivian, but she's not a simp. She's just an otaku, just like me and you. Again, I can understand, like, I agree with the gap moe thing. I don't agree with the otaku thing, just because an otaku gives the introspective that, like, the people that you're quote unquote simping for aren't real people. This is a real in the game sense, obviously, this is a real person. She's not just geeking out about them. She has admitted to actively stalking an actual person. You know, you can collect their merch, sure. Like, collecting merch of your idols is fine. Digging into their personal life to an extent is okay, you know, like you're catching up on them on their social media. You look at posts or fan accounts that are dedicated to them, which Phaethon is very popular. Phaethon is a well-known name, so it makes sense that she would look at those things, but she is actively going out of her way to get more information about them. I'd say you can compare this to being a paparazzi, but the thing is, she's not trying to necessarily spread this information around for other people. It's more like she wants it for herself because she wants to know them more, and she wants to have this, I want to say, like, to a point, like, I don't know if parasocial is necessarily the word here, because she doesn't come off in the beginning that me and Phaethon are friends, me and Phaethon are lovers. She doesn't do that, and not at all, you know? So I don't want to say it's on the verge of being parasocial, or at least not openly parasocial, but she definitely has a lot of, emotions and ties and feelings towards Lord Phaethon, which a lot of the fans are kind of wishy-washy about. And if we want to think about it, like, if we were to go ahead and say, like, I think one of the people in my chat mentioned to me is like, if it were Ben Bigger who was like this, would we be more okay with it, right? Would as You know, if the roles were reversed, would we be more okay with it? And the reality is, it's probably not. You know, even though that Ben Bigger also kind of has a gap moe to him as well, right? Like he comes off big and scary, but honestly, he's just a soft. He's like a teddy bear, you know. So I think like if the roles were reversed and, you know, if it were Ben, maybe some people would like it. Again, if you like Ben Bigger and from an outsider looking in, you know, like we kind of know Ben's story. So we kind of already knew him, you know, even before this part. But I think if we didn't know Ben and like that's how it came off from the beginning, I don't know if we would be fawning over Ben as much as people are fawning over Vivian. So let's see what the comments say about this. So Roundabout says, she is both a simp and geek for Phaethon, and it's silly to deny it. Admittingly, it was not as annoying as I thought it would be, but I think the dynamic between her and the main character was more fun when she thought we were fellow Phaethon fans. And that I do agree. I agree about that. I thought it was actually very funny. The whole time I was like, who's gonna tell her? Who's gonna tell her? So are you in the dislike Vivian because she's a simp camp, or are you fine with how her character's portrayed even though you think she's a simp? And they responded, I was in the first camp before, but after completing the story, I'm fine with her being a simp at the moment. I'm also fine with her being a simp. This is not to bash Vivian to make people think like, oh, we should reconsider liking Vivian because she's a stalker. It's definitely part of her character. At the end of the day, stalking isn't okay. We can all agree on this, but also we can all collectively see that like this is a video game. This is not real life, you know? And hey, if we were to be stalked by someone, you know, if it was a cute girl who wanted to protect you and, you know, only help you in the best ways and in healthy ways, it's not the worst thing. Like, we know even at the end of it, Wise and Belle do care a lot for Vivian as well. Like, it's very much, maybe it's not reciprocated in the same way, but Wise and Belle do have, deep feelings for Vivian. Maybe not romantic feelings, but they are deep feelings. They definitely consider Vivian a friend. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Going through everything, do we think that we should reconsider Vivian and think and look at her differently? Or do you think that, hey, it's a game, it doesn't matter? Or are you more on the spectrum where it's like, this kind of behavior was unnerving for you, that this didn't make you feel comfortable? I'm curious to know like what your opinions are and if you feel that Vivian's character is problematic and maybe romanticizes something we shouldn't be into as fans. Let me know in the comments below and we'll be back for another video soon. Take care, miracles, and stay radiant.